Hi students, so in today's video we'll be talking about the Maharashtra MBA CET 26 result which was announced today morning, and this was result of attempt 2. The attempt 1 result was obviously out some time back and there was a long gap in between. So today's result, there isn't much to say apart from saying that it was a fairly disappointing result. We have been speaking to students since morning and pretty much everybody is disappointed, right? So a lot of students are talking about the unfairness. Some of the students are even thinking of writing to CET Cell and doing a lot of things like filing petitions or filing a case and all of that. So the reason why I'm making this video is to help you understand some of the issues which were there with CET 26 result. I'll also help you understand what has happened in the past, because this is not the first time when something like this has happened. And as somebody who has been following the Maharashtra MBA CET for almost 17-18 years now, it felt incorrect or wrong to not talk about this. So that is why I'm going to cover some of the things that you should know as a candidate, as an aspirant, and also get in a little bit of rationality in the whole discussion rather than just it being an exercise where you end up bashing the authority. So let's begin. Now, a couple of things. First is, what is the issue? Right, so let's understand that. So the issue is that there are super high scores that have been reported in attempt 2 compared to attempt 1, right? What it means is, of course, attempt 1 also, we saw that students were scoring on the very high side, right? So if you look at a lot of students, and there were reports of toppers getting a score of 190 and so on. I am not saying it is not possible to get a score of 190. It is definitely possible, right? The paper was such that somebody who is, let's say, a well-prepared candidate, it was possible for such an individual to get to that particular score. One reality that we'll have to establish and accept is that the paper was much easier compared to the previous CETs that we have seen. And I have been seeing CET since 2008. So that was my first time when I took the CET, right? So during my time, if you think of it, the topper used to be about 165, 170 range, right? And that is a good standard of CET. So a hallmark of a good CET paper is one where the topper is about 165 to 170, right? It also creates a very nice demarcation between students, because then you know somewhere around 130, 135, you're going to have a 99 percentiler. Unfortunately, over the last several years, that equation has changed. So there have been cases where they have created very easy papers. There have been years where they have created very difficult papers as well, with JBMS cutoffs dropping to something like even 125, etc. So barring those exceptions, I would say a very good CET paper is this, wherein 165 to 170 is the topper. This time, definitely it was possible for some students to score more than 180. So don't think that scoring 180 plus is not possible in this paper. It was possible. If I give all of you the CET papers that we have at this point of time, all of them are available, right? So you can also see it. You take the CET paper and you don't keep a time limit of 2.5 hours and see how many you're actually able to solve. A lot of you will be able to get a very good score, and that is because the paper fundamentally was easy. So the biggest issue with this year's CET was that they created an easy paper. All the papers, pretty much all of them, were easy. Some of them definitely, if you look at it, were slightly difficult compared to others. And that's okay, because CET normalization, there's no normalization first of all. A lot of students think there's normalization. CET Cell should stop calling it normalization, right? It's not normalization. What you're doing is just giving slot-wise percentile, correct? So why are you calling it normalization? Please don't do that, okay? So there is no normalization, it's just slot-wise percentile. So what matters is how you have done in your slot, correct? So there were some slots which are difficult, but then if that paper is difficult, everybody will score on the lower side. If the paper is easy, everybody will score on the higher side, correct? So the relative positioning doesn't really change. And that is why it's okay to have slot-wise percentile. I'm not getting into questioning that particular method, right? But the problem is that you have an easy paper. Now, when the paper is easy, CET, which is classic speed-based exam, if you create an easy paper, you are not testing for speed, because now the questions are accessible to a lot of people. When you have a moderate level paper, the questions are accessible to fewer individuals who can be fast and solve those questions correctly. But the moment you set an easy paper, the questions become accessible to a wider audience who otherwise would not have been able to solve them in that particular time limit that is there. Correct? So fundamentally that is the problem, that you have set very easy papers wherein it is possible for well prepared candidates to go above 180. Correct? Now some people might say, okay, it is not possible, but let me tell you, it was possible. Okay, the paper wasn't so difficult that you cannot get it. The question is, how many people will have potential to get there, right? And that is something that can be discussed and debated. If you don't have any proof, right, if you don't have any evidence, all of these are basically accusation, right? You are saying that somebody has got a particular score by, let's say, cheating or by getting access to the paper, and all of those things, those are all accusations, right? It is completely baseless if you don't have evidence, correct? And that is why I'm not getting into all of that. The problem, as I mentioned, is fundamentally easy papers. And easy papers are going to create situations where people with even 1 mark difference will see a lot of difference in the percentile. So if you see, this is what has happened this year as well, that a single mark difference will create a huge difference in percentile, because a lot of people will get concentrated in that small range. It's something that is evident even in exams like SNAP. So think of what happened in SNAP this year versus a couple of years back where it was like a very beautiful test. So think of something like let's talk about 2022 or 21, right? Look at the papers, like 47 is 99.90 out of 60. But now suddenly you have 2025, the paper is easy. What happened because of that? 53 is 99.90. So a score of 47, which would have been sufficient in 21, or a 2020, let's say 49, or a 46 in 24, suddenly has gone up by 7 marks. Now 7 marks out of 60, look at it in terms of percentage, right? Because the paper is out of 60 marks. If you go down this table, you will see that 1 mark difference creates a difference of 5 percentile sometimes. So look at this, 36, 37, there's a 5 percentile difference. Now here at least there is negative marking. So you have 36.25, 36.50 and all of that, which is not there in CET, which means that if somebody has 113, somebody has 112, their percentile is going to be very different, right? So that is the issue. Now, I'm not saying CET should have negative marking. I'm saying whatever is your format, you can have the format, but at least create papers that are slightly difficult so that it is possible to distinguish between who is like a really well prepared candidate and who is not. Because the moment you take the difficulty out of the equation, you set an easy paper, then you're not testing for time, and then there will also be an element of luck that is involved. And let's say, for example, previously somebody getting a score of 160, right? Raw score 160, you have 40 marks that you can still score. But then let's say you're randomly marking all of them, correct? Your score maybe is 165, 166 at the end of it. Right now, let's say somebody scores a 180, you have 20 questions, right? So you have maybe another 4 or 5 questions that you can get correct. So your score will jump to 185. So that is why you have to have difficult papers, and that is the only way you can fix a problem like this. So that is something that is for CET Cell to handle. Now let's understand why there are doubts. First things first, number 1 is very high scores, correct? Is it possible? My answer is yes. Is it possible for people to go above 180 in any of the papers that were there? My answer is yes, it is possible. Can somebody go above 185? The answer is possible. Can somebody get a 175 plus? The answer is possible. Can somebody get a 190? My answer is yes, it is possible. The question is, how many students can do that? So when you look at this attempt, for example, attempt 2, you have an insane number of people who have gone above, say, 178, 180, correct? In let's say attempt 2, slot 2, a score of, I think, 180 is about 99.93, right? So you have a pretty large number of candidates above that as well. So the question is, how many people can actually get that score, and in the right spirit, right? See, if somebody is cheating, somebody has access to, let's say, a mobile phone or whatever it is, right? There are like possibly 10 things that people can do. If that is being done, then there is no question. I mean, then the discussion is meaningless, right? It has no meaning whatsoever. But assuming that there is complete fairness and everybody is attempting in the right manner, then yes, it is possible to score a 180, 185 in this paper. How many people can do it? That is the question. Another doubt is the regional distribution of toppers. Now this data is something that the CET Cell did not release on their official website. They gave it to the media after the first attempt result was announced. So now we know there were 5 slots, there were 800 percentilers. What they didn't release is release scores. So if you're releasing the names of the toppers, you might as well release their raw scores, right? What's the problem? Anyway, the problem is the regional distribution. So if you look at where the toppers are coming from, the 100 percentilers, where they are coming from, you will see 3 out of 8 are from Nagpur. Now again, I'm not saying students from Nagpur can't do this. I'm just saying that 3 out of 8 seems a little bit odd, right? And I'm sure a lot of others have also found it to be odd. Everybody was discussing it after the attempt 1 result. After attempt 2 result, let's see where the toppers are coming from, okay? Then category wise toppers. That also, they didn't release these names, all of these data. This is not on their official website. This is something that they released to the media, because I think most media reach out to them and they're like, okay, give us the names of the toppers. So they do that. Now category wise toppers, where are they coming from? So they're coming from Chandrapur, Parbhani, Satara, Amravati, Jalgaon, Latur, Nashik. Again, I am not saying people can't come from these areas, right? Because anybody can come from anywhere and they get a very high score, which is completely possible. I'm okay with it. But you don't see representation of a lot of places where typically toppers have come from. So that is one question. The second is, if you look at these names and if you try and find what's the typical, the education background, etc., you will see a lot of students from non-engineering backgrounds. There are engineers. I'm not saying we don't have engineers. But in the last several years, if you look at history of CET, you would typically have in the topper names, right, a lot of people coming from engineering background. So in fact, when I was a student, I think all the 99.99 percentilers, except I think 1 or 2 people, pretty much everybody was an engineer. Now somebody can argue, no, that dynamic itself has changed and we don't have so many engineers taking the CET, and I'm okay with it, right? But this representation leaves a room for doubt, for sure, okay? Let them release it for attempt 2 and we'll see if there's any change in this particular thing. Now, how do they ensure fairness, right? And if they want to have like a fair process, what should they do? The first thing is publish the obtained scores on the scorecard instead of just releasing the percentile. See, all of you currently have what? It's a piece of document which shows that this is the percentile that you got. Does it mention anything about your raw score? No. So the current process that they follow, wherein they release the question paper, that's a very good practice, because then you can challenge questions, which most of us did. After that, they announce that, okay, for this question, challenge has been accepted, not accepted, marks awarded to everybody, marks added to some specific people, and all of that. Answer key change is what they release. Answer key change to what, they don't release. So after that, I don't know where somebody, let's say maybe I had 150 before challenge, post my challenge, what's the exact score that I got? A lot of students don't even know that, right? Because it says answer key changed. If it says marks awarded to everybody, then at least I can figure it out. But if it says answer key changed, my question is changed to what, correct? So I don't know my final raw score. So there is a little bit of room for doubt there. So release the scores also on the scorecard. That is the best thing that they can do. Second is mention the slot on the scorecard. That also will help, because then you know that, okay, the person took it in this particular slot, got this much raw score, and this is the percentile that they got. Because at a point of time, a lot of you obviously will not know that they used to release the entire result as a PDF. So all whatever 70, 80, 90,000, 1 lakh people taking the test, they would just announce the result as a PDF. Then everybody can see the name of the person, what is the percentile that they have got. Of course, that also somebody can argue that it is not the best practice, looking at the privacy of the individual. So let's say, okay, fine, if you're not going to publish it, that's also fine, but at least you can take care of the first 2, right? Release the test venue details of 199.99 percentilers and category wise toppers. Now, why this, right? Because you have the regional representation that is there. That seems a bit off. And if this data is available, where they also show that, okay, these were the test venues, or at least they do the scrutiny prior to announcing the result, that will help the candidates, because then at least we know that, okay, some fairness is there by checking whether there are any instances of malpractice, right? See, I have tried to avoid, and I'm not accusing anybody, right? Because nobody has any evidence. So you can't sit and say, okay, somebody has got a score of say a 99.90, that person has cheated, right? You cannot do that because you don't have any evidence to show it. Till that particular point, all everybody is doing is basically just accusing somebody. And please don't do that, because for all you know, that person has actually prepared. So we are trying to find some students, right, very high scores, good percentile, and we found that some of them also had taken CET in the previous year. Some of them had good scores at that point of time as well. Now, when that example is available, you know that some cases are genuinely valid cases. But there could be some cases where something may have happened and we don't know that, and there's no way to prove it. So that is why, if you're basically trying to ask CET Cell some questions, I would say you should be asking these questions. And that is why I've made this slide, that if anybody is planning to write to CET Cell, right, and ask them any questions, what you should be asking for is this data point. But don't do that where the names that are publicly available, you sit and then try and sort of accuse them that, okay, they must have done something, right? Because for all you know, they are genuine candidates, right? We don't know anything about them, so there is no point doing that, correct? So please don't indulge yourself in it. Something that I really want to talk about is, because a lot of you don't know about it, this is not the first time that the result of MBA CET has been a mess, correct? This has happened in the past. Think of 2015. Lots of errors in the paper. I think there were 4 slots that year. Every slot had some issues, like 11 questions wrong, 12 questions wrong, 19 questions wrong, and something like that. So there was a stay on the admission process because of that. There was a demand for a retest, etc., because of the number of questions which are incorrect. The Bombay High Court, though there were irregularities and whatever in the scoring pattern, they dismissed the petition. There was no retest. So everybody was asking for a retest. Understand that if you have a retest, the entire admission process will go slow from here on. So if somebody says, no, I want a retest, right? They write to CET Cell, they file a petition, go to the court and all of that. The result process will get, the entire admission process will get delayed, right? So it's not going to help you in any way. And people who have done well will always argue saying, we have done well, so why there should be a retest? For some individuals who think that the test has been conducted in an unfair manner, for which I believe there's no evidence, because very few technical glitches reported, very few errors also in the paper. There were errors in the paper and even in the final key, which I agree. But then that is not going to be a basis for having a retest. Then in 21, what happened was, so what happened was, this particular year, they had mentioned that will be the number of questions in each of the sections, but the actual distribution was way off. So these are like the surprise years of CET, wherein you would go to the paper, in your slot, you have, let's say, 50 questions of LR. In somebody else's slot, they have 72 questions of LR. So there was no standardization in this particular year. So people questioned that. Again, people were asking for retest. What happened? Nothing. The entire admission process got delayed by 1 month. Let me give you an example from a recent year, 23. What happened in 23 was, firstly, it was completely a mistake of CET Cell, wherein in the first slot, people got 3 hours instead of 2.5 hours. How many people got 3 hours? Roughly 10,000 people. And because it was a significant figure, they decided to do a retest for those 10,000 people, correct? So they published a separate list that, okay, these are the people who have been affected, who got 3 hours, their name appeared in that list, you now appear for a retest. People questioned that, how are you normalizing for these 10,000 people? Again, reached Bombay High Court. What was the outcome? There was a petition, everything, 154 students over a retest. Some student due to technical glitches and all of that, nothing happened after this. Okay, so they decided that, okay, it's not making any sense, the arguments which were presented, they rejected it. So this is not going to be the first time that somebody thinks of filing a case. I think every year people think of it. People, of course, don't do that. But the years in which it happens, it delays the admission process, number one. Second, the outcome is not something that you want to have. So that is why it's better to stay away from all of this, is what my genuine recommendation to you is going to be. I understand that some of you might be frustrated. This is not the best result that somebody could have got. Possibly this is the worst result that you have seen. You were expecting a higher score, you got a lower score. You feel this is a disaster, and which it is. I understand all of it. But then if you start doing this, it's not going to help you. If you want to question CET Cell, you can do that. You can, of course, write to them, you can send them a mail, you can visit them in person and all of that. If you're planning to do it, ask the right questions and don't do any accusations without evidence. So what next? So that's why I made this video, that let's bring a little bit of rationality in the whole thing rather than just talking about the frustration that everybody is feeling, and I completely understand the frustration. We have so many good students who have not been able to get a very good percentile, right? But we also know that there's lack of transparency in the whole process, right? So they don't release a lot of things which they should, some of the things that I showed you, right? If all of that data is available, right, at least then we know that, okay, fairness is there. But in the absence of that data, of course, there's a lot of room for doubt. Okay. So what is going to happen from here, right? Now the results are out for both attempts. The percentile that you have got is what is going to matter from here, and whether you decide to participate in the cap rounds or not. What is cap rounds? It's a centralized admission process wherein firstly they will announce it. So they will take some time, maybe 1-2 weeks before they actually do the announcement. Might happen quickly as well, we don't know. So they will announce cap. The website will have all the dates. It will have the entire schedule as to when things are going to happen. Then the online registration will begin. So whether you have taken CET or not taken CET, in the sense that whether you're a Maharashtra candidate or not a Maharashtra candidate, you will have to submit this form. Just because you have taken CET, don't believe that your process will just happen. You have to fill this form. So in this form, you have to basically upload your documents. So uploading of the required documents, so depending on your candidature, it will show you what all documents you need. Domicile certificate, birth certificate, school or college living certificate, mark sheets of your 10th, 12th, graduation, etc. Correct? Then once you upload those documents, there's an e-verification that will happen. Post that, they confirm the application form. In case you have not appeared for CET, you need to pay for this particular step. If you have taken CET, then you don't have to pay anything. Then they display the provisional merit list, and this is where things will become clear. See, right now a lot of students have questions on, I have scored this much percentile, what will I get? The point is, ultimately what matters is how many people will actually participate in cap rounds and where do you stand relative to people. Because right now you have percentile that you have got in your slot. There are 5 slots of attempt 1, 2 slots of attempt 2, so there are 7 slots. There is going to be an impact of this on the cutoffs for sure, but also cutoffs will get impacted by the number of people who actually participate. Last year, for example, there were some 60,000 people who ended up actually filling the cap form. Rest dropped out. They dropped out because one, they got very low scores, so they thought nothing is going to happen, so might as well not participate. Second category would be people who have already got better institutes. They have got PGDM programs, or they are planning to take the CAT or CET next year and all of that. So a lot of people are not going to participate in CAP, and your competition from here on is going to be with people who decide to actually participate. So provisional merit list, if there is any issue in that, maybe your 10-12 marks are wrong, incorrectly captured and all of that, you fix all of those things and then they have a final merit list. They announced 2 merit lists. One would be a state merit list and the other would be an all India merit list. People who come from all India category will have their names appearing in the all India merit list along with students of Maharashtra. Students who come from Maharashtra will have a separate Maharashtra list as well. Okay. Now, so they will also have a display of provisional category-wise seat, which is what is called seat matrix, which will tell you in each of the categories, in each of the colleges, how many seats exist. And finally, then the cap round 1 will begin. A rough timeline for this could be a month. So from the time of recording this video, maybe a month's time is when these things will start falling in place. Exactly we don't know, but hopefully by mid-July or end July, everything will get done and the institute will begin. Typically, that is how things are. Okay. Now, what are the recommendations, correct? So, as I have been saying in the video since the beginning, this is not the result that most of you deserved. This is definitely not fair, I would say, especially if there have been instances of cheating. But again, there's no proof for that. But if there are, this is not the result that you deserve, obviously, because there are people who would be using unfair means. But if that is the case, I completely agree with you and this is not fair. But because nobody has any evidence, I would say you should limit yourself and be optimistic about what you can do from here, rather than just sitting and then either ranting about it somewhere, the way I am, unfortunately, at this point of time, which I think you should do for some time just to take it out of your system. And then you come back to normal and say, okay, fine, now this is my reality, what do I do from here? Correct. So first is, if you have a better option, you join it. If you have any other convert, you have converted some of the, say, second, third generation IIMs and you are hoping to get into JBIMS or SIDNUM or whatever, join them. Correct. If you have, let's say, converted some of the local private institutes, they're reasonably good options, please join them, right? So you compare the B school that you would have got by your CET, because past year data is available. So if you know, okay, fine, I'm mostly getting, say, a Wellinger. Now I have an option which is offering a marginally higher placement than that. So just join it, right? Don't wait for the entire CET process to happen. Second, participate in CAP. Now, those of you who are, of course, fighting for JBIMS or a SIDNUM or a Wellinger or some of the top colleges, right? You will have to participate and see what happens, because there are some colleges that have already started. Students have already joined these colleges and then they were just hoping to get a good CET score, waiting for the result. Now, what do you do? Because you still don't know whether you will be able to make it. So you participate in the CAP rounds. Then PGDM applications, wherever they are open, you can still apply to them. Some of the colleges will still have their process open, admissions open, so please apply. Specialized programs such as MSc Finance, MHRD at JBIMS and some of the other places also, wherever there are niche programs or some programs that they offer, you can just see if you are eligible, you can apply there, correct? ATMA is happening on 12 July, but I believe that CAP rounds will be announced prior to it, so I'm not sure whether 12 July ATMA scores will get accepted. I'm repeating this, I'm not sure about it, but if you want, you can still take a shot. Okay. Unfortunately, there was nobody from ATMA that got in last year at JBIMS because of the 99.98 max score that somebody got. Nobody got a 99.99, so nobody from ATMA basically made it to JBIMS that year. But then you never know. So that is why, if at all there is this remote possibility of ATMA score getting accepted, you should take it. MAT is happening on 14 June. Now people who have already registered for it obviously have that opportunity. So focus on that, give your best and see if that helps you to get an all India seat. But those of you who are not registered for it, obviously there's nothing that you can do about it now. And finally, CAT 26. So if you have now reached a stage where whatever you could have done, you have done it. And now you know that this is mostly the kind of B school that I'm going to get. It does not fall in the original aspiration that I started with. And that is why I'm going to go for CAT 26. Some of you may have taken only CET. And now you know that only CET is not a good strategy. So you should take CAT, you should take some other exams like NMAT, SNAP, etc. to improve your chances. So putting all your eggs in one basket is generally never a good strategy. So if you have taken only CET, my advice to you is going to be, think of the choice that you have done, and instead of doing the same thing next year, you expand the scope a little bit, take multiple exams and see what happens. Okay. So that's going to be my advice. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, queries, anything that you want to discuss, leave it as a comment and I'll try and get back as soon as I can. Okay. I know this video I'm not ending on the most positive note. In fact, the entire tone of the video hasn't been positive. But I will say this one thing, that I have seen far more tests than most of you, and with every test there have been some or the other issues that have happened in the past. Once you have the result, that's the reality. So you accept it and you move on, rather than thinking about what could have been and what should have been. Okay, so I hope this helps. Wish all of you all the best from here. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you soon. Take care.